So now we've seen how to implement staff member and its derived class employee. Let's derive another class from employee. This time we'll create an hourly employee class. Now we'll call this class hourly, and keep in mind hourly, since it's an employee, is also a staff member. So it's going to have all the members of staff member and employee, and then we'll add some other features. So the hourly employee is going to extend employee, and we're going to add an attribute for the number of hours that the employee worked. We'll use this to calculate their pay by multiplying their pay rate times the number of hours they worked. We'll calculate the bonus prorated over a 40-hour week. So whatever portion of a 40-hour week they work, that's the portion of the bonus they'll receive. In our hourly header file, we'll first add our guards, then our hourly class will extend employee, not staff member, but employee. And I'm going to put the ending bracket or ending brace and the semicolon at the end so I don't forget it like I did last time. Now, the hourly employee has an additional member called hours, and then the hourly worker is going to start off with a pretty similar constructor, but we're going to add an additional int for their hourly rate, and then we can use employee in the name, address, phone, social security, rate. So we'll initialize hours with H. This is not going to be abstract, so we need to have a pay method, and we'll put the declaration there, and we'll actually define it in the C++ file. So if I look at my files, I think I need to copy hourly C++ to hourly HPP because I have a header file, not a C file. But now I have a copy of that, so I can go ahead and change this. And all I actually need in hourly is to implement that pay method. I don't need the guards, and I just noticed I'm missing the end guard, so that's not good at all. So I'll fix that when I'm done here. So the only thing I need is this pay method, and that's going to just return the pay rate times the number of hours. And that should be sufficient. So let me look at this header file again and add the indef. And I'll compile again. Notice I'm just compiling star.c++. Non-member function int pay cannot have that quality. So this part's okay. This is not hourly's pay, this is just a pay method. So to make it hourly's pay, I need to use the scope resolution operator. And I think that's going to be the only error because these two are related. Interesting. So hourly has not been declared. That's capital H. Okay, good. And again, undefined reference to main, that's fine. I don't have a main method. I just want to make sure this stuff at least compiles. The logic is pretty simple, so I'm not too worried about that. And again, now I have an actual method I could use to start instantiating my staff or my main method. The next class we're going to add is another derived class of employee. This time we're going to have a salaried employee. Now a salaried employee will still extend employee, but we're not going to need any additional attributes because employee already has a pay rate. Now the pay rate is going to represent the yearly salary for a salaried employee. So to calculate their pay, we'll need to divide their pay rate, which is their yearly salary, by 26, which is the number of pay periods in a year. We'll also be able to use the existing bonus method since whatever that bonus will be, it will be awarded directly to the employee without any additional calculation. I'm going to copy the hourly C++ file to a salaried C++ file. I'm going to do the same with the HPP files. And again, this is just to make things easier as I can make the changes to the files because they're actually going to be pretty similar. Okay, so the salaried worker, their pay is going to be their pay rate, and we'll say divided by 26 because their pay rate will be their yearly salary. And so now I think I'm pretty done with that. So that's good. So now let's open up the header file. I'm going to change hourly to salaried. And then I don't need a private section here because there's no additional methods I need. I can take away that hours option and just call the employees method, because again, with just the rate, I know I can calculate the pay rate because they're a salaried worker. I just take that pay rate divided by 26. There's no additional members I need, but I am going to implement the pay method, which I just did. So that went pretty well. So again, we get the error that we're looking for. That one's fine. It looks like our code is good. The next staff member that we're going to create is going to be a volunteer class. Now, the volunteer isn't an employee because they don't have pay, they're not going to pay taxes and so forth, but they are a staff member. So the volunteer class will extend staff member, not employee. The volunteer doesn't have any additional attributes. We don't keep track of their pay or number of hours because they don't get any pay. And we will allow them to get a bonus. However, whatever the typical bonus is, they'll get 10% of that bonus value. So we'll divide whatever the bonus parameter is by 10. Now, since like employee, volunteer extends staff member, we'll copy the employee CPP and HPP files to our volunteer CPP and HPP file to give us a good starting point for our volunteer class. So we'll rename our guard. We're still going to include staff member, and we're still going to have a constructor. The volunteer isn't going to need any public or protected because none of those are used to calculate the volunteer's pay because there isn't any. So we don't need any of these initializers either, since we're not using those data members. So here we're going to have just the same three parameters that we would have for a staff member. We can use the staff members print function, so no need to re-implement that. And their pay method is actually going to be pretty straightforward. So I actually would just say return 0 and just put that implementation right in the header file since it's so simple. I don't think that there's a reason not to do that. That means when we get to volunteer.c++, we actually can remove it because there's no new methods implemented for the volunteer. Okay, so let's see where we are at this point. We have staff member, we have employee, hourly, salaried, and volunteer. I believe that covers everybody. And going back and looking at our class hierarchy again, you can see that we have a header file for each of these classes. We have C++ files for all of them except for the volunteer, which, as you'll remember, we didn't really need to implement any complicated methods for volunteer, so we put all of the method definitions actually inside the class. So in our next video, we'll actually take a look at how we use these classes.